Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to share how I prepared for my IELTS and how I scored an overall band of 8.0. I took IELTS around 3 years ago, so I may not remember every tiny detail, but I do remember what my preparation looked like, what worked for me, and what I would recommend to anyone preparing for the exam. Before I start, I want to give a little heads up. I personally felt that I was already quite comfortable with English before taking IELTS. My entire education was in English, so my focus wasn't really on learning English from scratch. What I needed to learn was IELTS itself, the format, the question types, and the techniques needed to perform well in the exam. I only had around 10 to 15 days to prepare. I know many people prepare for months, but I didn't have that luxury. During those 10 to 15 days, though IELTS was pretty much my entire focus, um, in the end, I scored an overall band of 8.0 with a 9 in listening, an 8 in reading, and a 7 in both writing and speaking. The first thing I did was understand the exam, no matter how good your English is. I don't think it's a good idea to jump straight into practice tests. You first need to understand how IELTS works and what the examiners are looking for. The resource that helped me the most was a 9-hour YouTube video by Learn with Sam and Ash. I watched the entire video and took notes while watching it so that I wouldn't forget the important points. Only after that I started practicing. And so let's talk about each and every aspect of the IELTS, starting with listening. Listening was probably my strongest section. During practice, I consistently got full marks. If I remember correctly, there were 40 questions and I would regularly score 40 out of 40 in my practice tests. One thing that really helped me was quickly looking through the questions before the audio started. That way, I already had an idea of what information I needed to listen for. Then, while listening, as soon as I realized that a particular part of the audio was referring to a specific question, I would write the answer down immediately. This is important because the recording keeps moving. If you spend too much time thinking about one answer or writing too slowly, then you can easily miss the next answer. And the next one after that, it can become a domino effect where one missed answer causes you to miss several more. So for me, staying alert, identifying the answer quickly, and writing it down immediately was one of the best important listening strategies. Now, coming to reading, reading was by far the hardest section for me during preparation. The reading section is supposed to be completed in 60 minutes, but when I first started practicing, it would take me 2 hours or sometimes even longer. I struggled with concentration. I found some passages boring, and sometimes an entire day would disappear because I was stuck on reading. Then one day, my mom told me about a student from an IELTS institute she knew. Apparently, this girl used to finish the entire reading section in just 20 minutes. When I heard that, something changed in my mindset. Until then, I had been focusing on how difficult reading was. But after hearing that story, I started thinking if someone else can do it, maybe I can improve too. I decided that I wanted to reach that level as well. So I started challenging myself to finish faster every day. Surprisingly, within a few days, I was finishing reading in around 20 minutes. Sometimes it even took me only 15 minutes. So the reason I'm sharing this is because there may be people watching this who are currently taking 2 or 3 hours to finish reading practice tests and feel discouraged. I was in exactly the same position. Things can improve much faster than you expect, just so you know. Now moving on to writing. One thing that helped me a lot with writing was building my vocabulary before I started practicing seriously. I used to maintain lists of useful linking words and alternative words that I could use in my essays so that I wouldn't keep repeating the same vocabulary. For example, instead of always writing that something increased, I would have alternatives ready, such as rose, grew, climbed, surged, or skyrocketed. I also kept lists of linking words and phrases that could help connect ideas smoothly. I wasn't trying to memorize essays, instead, I was building a collection of useful vocabulary and connectors that I could naturally use when writing. Along with that, I practiced writing regularly so that I became more comfortable expressing my ideas within the time limit. Coming to speaking, during part of my preparation, I attended an IELTS institute. One thing that helped me was having someone sit with me and ask speaking questions. Afterwards, they would point out areas where I could improve. If you know somebody who understands IELTS or has already taken the exam, I would definitely recommend practicing with them. One mistake I made initially was thinking that all my answers had to be completely true. For example, imagine the topic is about your best friend, but you don't really have a best friend. Don't just say, I don't have a best friend, and stop there. The examiner isn't checking whether your story is true. They want to see whether you can communicate effectively in English. Similarly, if the topic is about cleaning your house and you don't really actually clean your house, don't panic. If you can speak more naturally about that situation, then do that. The important thing is to stay on the topic and keep speaking naturally and fluently. The goal is to be able to speak comfortably for the full duration rather than giving very short answers. As for my overall preparation routine, every day I had a target. I would do 4 listening tests, 2 reading tests, at least 1 writing task, and ideally between 1 and 4 speaking sessions. So since I only had around 10 to 15 days, I tried to stay as consistent as possible. The last thing I want to say is that IELTS is very learnable. I know people who were far less comfortable with English than I was and still achieved excellent scores. One example is my cousin who studied in a local school where English wasn't the medium of communication and still managed to score around 7 or 7.5 in IELTS. So if you're worried that your English isn't good enough, don't let that stop you from trying. Understand the exam, practice consistently, and staying determined can make a huge difference. That's pretty much my IELTS journey and the things that helped me score an overall band of 8.0. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.